Thank you. Very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is the third day of the GTI forum. I'm Christoph Häuser, your single co-chair for the remainder of our meeting, and I'm really happy to see you all back. Following 2 very interesting days, we now have 3 hours ahead of us for the actual official work we are expected to do on this forum. So again, it will be my duty and perhaps a little bit also my challenge to keep us within this time frame and to ensure that we agree on how to deliver a concrete product out of this meeting. So again, let me just remind you, we only have 3 hours. It would be my intention to have a break of maybe 15 to 20 minutes at a convenient time in between. But other than that, we have to stick to the program. And I will briefly just outline that we would start with a brief presentation by the Secretariat about the results from yesterday. We would then proceed with a proposal, or actually the way forward on how to provide input and collect your contributions for the information document, which we have as an offer from the Secretariat to provide. And then, as already indicated in a smaller group or yesterday, we will do a tour de table. We will offer the floor to each and every one of the regional representatives of the nominated experts, plus the invited observers, for an oral statement specifically on their contribution to the document and to the day forward, to the way forward. And then, of course, we still have to do the official other duties or the remaining agenda points, any other business, and the finalization of the report by the Secretariat. So very briefly, this is what's ahead of us today. And without further delay, I would like to hand back to the Secretariat to give us some brief summary from the last 2 days and also maybe some technical information. Junko, Katie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I apologize that yesterday at the closing, I was a little bit confused by the agenda item, and the Secretariat is very grateful for everybody who has made it. Large numbers of information presented to everyone, and those are the best practices, and the Secretariat captured some bullet points to be shown on the slide today, just to bridge 2 days, the previous 2 days, what we have discussed and what we are going to reflect to the outcome, drafted outcome of this forum. That means technical series at the end. So the process will be discussed after the tour de table, etc., as Christoph mentioned. And I would like to invite Katie to read out what was presented over the last 2 days. There are numbers of good elements that we will reflect to our outcomes. Thank you.
Seem to be muted. I don't hear you.
I'm sorry. So thank you, Junko. As Junko mentioned, a lot of tools were introduced over the last 2 days of presentations, and we'll just briefly summarize what was discussed in that area. So first of all, we saw that GBIF biodiversity occurrence data has been exploding across many parties. There's high numbers of data being uploaded every day. We're seeing a digitization of flora and fauna worldwide becoming available. In addition to that, many field guides and monographs are being published. We're seeing high usage of DNA barcoding and meta barcoding technologies, as in BioScan, BioAlpha, and VietBio. And with these technologies, it's not only very cost effective, but we're also recording many previously unknown species. Advances in bioinformatics and informatics in general are filling in a lot of data gaps that we have not previously known, such as advancing our understanding of species interactions. We're also starting to record species in regions and ecoregions to now start establishing baselines for future time series so we can monitor and track changes in biodiversity over time. The Global Biodiversity Outlook 5 has identified, however, that taxonomy is still required and necessary across broad sectors, across agriculture sectors, in freshwater, cities and infrastructure, and in the One Health initiative. Taxonomy is very important for soil, understanding what species are in our soil and necessary for agriculture production, pollinators, and in-farm biodiversity data. Also has very important uses in freshwater systems, which are highly susceptible to invasive alien species. We also need taxonomy for cities and infrastructure, not only understanding what types of biodiversity is changing in cities, but also understanding how we can inform impact assessments for infrastructure development. And lastly, as we're seeing now with COVID, that taxonomy is needed for understanding how diseases are transmitted, understanding those vectors, hosts, identifying reservoirs, and even identifying medicinal plants for medical purposes. In terms of the support that the parties can provide towards the global biodiversity framework, we're seeing support happening at two levels, at the national and international level. At the national level, education is rolling out across many communities, particularly now with remote learning and e-learning, and we're seeing distributed schools of taxonomy being developed. Citizens are being engaged in science and youth and in their local community engagement, which is extremely important for biodiversity awareness. And they're providing advice to their focal governments, either through identifying threatened and invasive species, and that is also being incorporated into national regulations. And we're starting to see that eDNA is being used as an environmental assessment tool to inform regulations at national levels. The international level, we're seeing capacity development in applications of taxonomy. We're also seeing that informatics infrastructure is being supported, and particularly for its ability to mobilize data. And also we're seeing between countries a lot of bilateral developmental aid. And important comments were made across a number of participants and presentations over the last 2 days, particularly how capacity development must be a long-term commitment, that the FAIR data principles must be incorporated. So all of the data that is being produced must be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And lastly, the job opportunities of taxonomists may be limited, but we can expand these to reduce the taxonomic impediment. But also it's important that these taxonomists are expanding their work and their expertise beyond academia into sectors such as the private sector, where they can have very useful implementations there. So I'll just end there. And thank you for that summary.
Okay, the Secretariat handed over to the chair, Christoph.
Yeah, thank you very much, Junko and Katie, and also thanks for that useful summary of what was contributed over the last 2 days. Indeed, this is really was not only very interesting, but it's also highly relevant and important for us to take on board for the outcome and product of our work. We have, of course, realized and heard also from some of you, thank you to GBIF and others, that most of you felt a bit, not only overrun, but in some ways perhaps overstretched by these time constraints, which I can fully sympathize with. So with given these considerations, and on the other hand, the time constraints and the uncertainties the Secretariat is currently operating under, we would propose, so to say, a revised and extended timeline for you to provide input to this text, to this compilation. And if I may, I would like to ask Secretariat to present now the timeline to you, which from the Secretariat's point of view is yeah, I should say the most of extension that's possible, again, under the current circumstances. So let me, again, and I trust many of you are familiar with the overall CBD timeline, which again, at this very moment has no agreed dates for either the next Substan or the next SBI 3 meeting, but everybody expects those to take place rather sooner than later, any time from whatever late February to April this coming year. But of course, it's all yet to be decided. But from the Secretariat, or from all practical considerations point of view, to have any, so to say, impact or uptake of this technical series publication, it needs to be finalized by the end of January, the very latest. And given the editorial processes in the Secretariat, that means for their writing team to consider, not only consider, to really take up your contributions, they cannot be in writing, especially, they cannot be later than 14th of December. So what we would propose, and again, I'm fully supporting here the Secretariat, and I'm grateful for their openness and flexibility, essentially to work over the Christmas New Year period, that we would ask, again, we will today have a tour de table and some options for anybody to, so to say, ad hoc respond and provide additional input to the draft text as it stands, but essentially ask for everybody's written input, and we'll explain, or I'll explain in a minute how we expect that to happen by 14th of December. And the input essentially is to fill or to complement the information provided, especially from parties and relevant organizations, for what's to be in this Annex 1 of this document. And we would expect from the Secretariat and some appointed lead authors to have a first completed version of that by, or the Secretariat has to have that by the 15th of January. And we would then, so to say, briefly reconvene or ask via email from, and this is only the invited regional representatives, for their approval by the 22nd of January. This is, as far as I understand, again, the most or the only possible realistic timeline scenario to get this document in shape and make it available in published form as a technical series issue, as said, early February next year. So again, I hope this is sufficient for the revised timeline, and hopefully also for the process. But before I would briefly offer to introduce the content and the structure of the document as it stands, I would like to ask for your immediate feedback on the process, on the procedure. And again, I have to ask the Secretariat to help me because I don't think we have this, we have a raise hand option here. So for those of you who are among the invited panelists, we see you on screen, but I believe for everybody else, Katie, correct me, you have to, so to say, raise your hand via putting something in the question box, correct? Or the chat.
That's correct. For the panelists, please you can unmute yourself, but I can now activate the raise hand option for all participants as well. So I'll do that now.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. Great. So question again, is this process clear, and is the timeline as the revised extended timeline acceptable to you? Of course, there is no obligation to provide input, but we would be really, really keen to see that. And of course, we realize that it's extremely ambitious and also quite, strenuous on you to have additional work at very short-term notice, so to say. There we have it. What is here as table 1, and this goes back a little bit to the question raised by Chris Lyle. In the 6th national report, certainly a number of parties through their GTI focal point have submitted relevant information. But here and now, and certainly for everybody, so to say, on the meeting and in the circulation round as a GTI focal point, please, if you have additional relevant information from GTI related activities in your country or organization, there is space or a placeholder here to collect that additional information. And again, it's my understanding that the Secretariat and their editorial team will make sure that and maybe not to the extent as Mark Watson was pointing to producing very long tables, but at least some concise summary of relevant examples of national contributions. So again, this is, so to say, the first part we would ask, especially from GTI focal point and national representatives, for your additional input. If you have provided input already through the national report or by your prior submission, you don't need to repeat that. But again, that would be a first, so to say, call for your contribution. So then if you could briefly or quickly rather, so to say, move through the remainder of the document under what's Chapter 2, Theory of Change, GTI for the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. This is just essentially setting the scene with a hopefully somewhat attractive or eye-catching graphic about the need and the opportunities to have a GTI renewed mandate for the future. And again, also this or linking this to the new approaches and emerging opportunities for taxonomy and biosystematic works. And again, it's not fully formulated. Essentially, it would highlight the new genomics, the new or some new developments and from the information age, and certainly the reaching out to the society through citizen science and similar developments. And then it would continue with taxonomic tools, where again, we would offer or call for some, and certainly not exhaustive, but at least some good examples of such tools and contributions in the tables. And again, some of these tables you will find again at the end, and we'll come to that in a minute, where we have, or the Secretariat has so to say, provided a template for your input if you want to fill in those tables. The same goes for the next paragraphs, sharing taxonomic information. And I believe, just to save time, we can essentially briefly scroll through to essentially the annex. Most of the text, and don't mind the, if I may say so, official CBD formatting with numbered paragraphs. It's my understanding this is not the usual or the suitable way to do that in a technical serious information package, but it's certainly the working conditions for the Secretariat. So whether there will be these numbers or how they will be structured, this is up to the final editing. Then again, and this is also for everybody's input, and so most of the text you see there are essentially placeholders just to propose or make sure there will be some good, hopefully concise paragraphs on also the relevant sectors the GTI has and will, especially under the new global framework, interact with or offer relevant information to. And then, of course, there should be and needs to be a extended chapter on needed resources and ways of support. I believe, for the sake of time, again, Katie, if you could just, so to say, jump forward to Annex 2, which Mark Watson already referred to. Again, this is just a suggestion, given the shortage of time, and essentially to facilitate written input from you, from everybody. Certainly we don't, or I understand that it was not or is not intended to produce page-long tables of this sort, but just to have some sort of summarizing information which parties and organizations may wish to provide. This is, so to say, the least, or this is a template we would ask all of you to use, or partly use at least, to submit some, and again, just some relevant activity, highlight product, be it a taxonomic key or a database or a national fauna flora, which you feel is most suitable, so to say, to advertise and make visible the good efforts for this. And continue with Mohamed Taleb from Morocco. Mohamed, I have seen you. You are there. The floor is yours. I think you also have to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. You hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, thank you. Now, me too, I am very happy to take part of this meeting. And well, I will provide comments after this meeting for different cyber about the information of taxonomic in Morocco. We've done a lot of production in taxonomic as queue of identification of species, as vascular flora of catalog of Morocco, and as some database of species. I have some remark about, in general, about the indigenous people and local community. My question is, what taxonomy could bring to indigenous people and local community as capacity building to strengthen the indigenous local knowledge linked to the use of species? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. And again, we also certainly look forward to have your contributions in writing.
Yes.
On your question or important point of concerning the relevance and perhaps tailoring of taxonomy for local and indigenous communities, please also take a look at there is under the sectors part of the document, there is a subheading indigenous communities, which I believe, with all due respect to the Secretariat at the moment, is a placeholder, or there is not too much text at the moment. So feel free to address that question there or provide some input into that paragraph.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, again, thanks. I would then like to offer the floor to Ramagwai Sebola from Zambia. We have had your beautiful presentation yesterday, But in addition, of course, you're invited to take the floor now. Again.
Thank you, Chairperson, and I would also like to thank you for the invitation to the session, and as well as the opportunity to make comments on this draft document. There's going to be need for consultation within the taxonomy community, and that I can assure you that we will meet the deadline in submitting written comments in this process. So specific issues will be raised in our formal submission that will be making by the deadline. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ramagwai, and we certainly also look very much forward to receive further information from you from South Africa. But I'm happy to say we already have some good contributions to refer to. Okay, we would continue with the invited participants from Asia Pacific, and I'm very happy to call again on Haining Xin from the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Haining, you have the floor if you're there. And yeah, please.
Yeah. What section?
Okay, thank you. Well, we miss our colleague Gonzalo Andrade from Colombia, but again, we had yesterday Diana Hernandez from Conabio. Diana, are you with us?
Yes, he
and
is.
ready? Yeah, then please, the floor is yours, Diana.
Again, I suppose she has a technical problem on her computer. We cannot hear.
Yeah, I don't.
We may ask
hear
her
that.
to submit a statement in writing so that Secretariat can read out for you.
Yeah, thank you, Diana. I can see you, so if it's okay with you, please. Yeah, we can't hear you. I'm sorry. Then please send an email with your comments to Katie or the Secretariat, and we'll come back and read it as soon as we receive it. Okay, sorry for these continued problems. So now we have Julien Fenneman from Brussels, from Arbens, on the official list. It was your colleague, but I believe it's you now as the GTI focal point. So Julien, please.
Yes, okay. So I've already introduced myself yesterday and also gave a presentation of our activities. So I don't need to repeat that, but I've already gone through the document quite quickly and I have maybe a few suggestions. In general, I would be in favor of a theory of change that is a bit more specific, because now it's quite general. It could actually relate to any kind of capacity development activity. One of the issues I'm missing in the theory of change is the long-term systemic approaches. I think that was the main issue also in the context of the development of the capacity building. So that should be definitely included, I think. And then also maybe the activities could be a bit more specific. If we talk about, for example, training and education, maybe we could specify some approaches and modalities, like train the trainer approach, blended learning, e-learning, just to be a bit more specific. Activities that I'm maybe missing right now are linked to the establishment of networks and support centers. So maybe that's also something that could be incorporated, as well as a reference to matchmaking as something that already is existing in the form of the BioBridge project, but maybe something like that could also be mentioned to bring people in contact, people who have needs and people who can provide assistance. Then as far as the sectors are concerned, in my opinion, the science policy interface could be elaborated a bit more, how taxonomic knowledge could inform decision-making processes. And also maybe a link to the health sector that could also be more specific among the other sectors. And then also maybe there's a lot going on now about access and benefit sharing in relation to digital sequence information. So maybe we could also integrate a statement on that, I don't know, because yeah, the obligations need to be compatible with open access of that databases. So maybe that could have an impact on taxonomic research. So we could maybe introduce a section on that part. And then just a final remark, we have talked a lot about DNA barcoding, but I was also wondering what is the role of whole genome sequencing? Because there are also a lot of new techniques on whole genome sequencing that are also quite advancing, and the costs are also diminishing. So I was also wondering about that aspect, because I think that's also an important one. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Gillian, for these many and very good suggestions. I trust we got all of them in the recording, but again, please do provide the details in writing. That will be really helpful. And just again, as a as to make it clear and repeat, maybe as an additional motivation to all of you, all your names will be as, so to say, co-authors on this document. So again, feel free, unless you, so to say, drop out, to provide whatever good input you have in writing. Okay, let's continue now. Next on the list now, of course, being with the Western European and others group, Hugo de Boer from Oslo, Natural History Museum.
I'm sorry, Christoph. He had to step out for a moment and he will return.
Okay, thanks for the information. So please, if I forget, remind me that we call on Hugo again. So this, unless, please help me, this concludes the list of officially invited, or not, well, the agreed, approved regional representatives. And we would now continue with the invited experts from relevant organizations. First on the list is again GBIF. So Tim Hirsch, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We will be submitting more detailed responses in writing by the deadline. Thank you very much for adjusting the timeline there. I obviously did raise some points and suggestions in my presentation yesterday, so I won't repeat that. Maybe just to add 2 or 3 additional points that I think could find a place in the document. First of all, I would just refer to the initiative known as the Alliance for Biodiversity Knowledge, which was launched at the recent Global Biodiversity Informatics conference, which is a relatively informal way of bringing different partners together to come to collective solutions on many of the technical and social issues that have provided blockages with regard to mobilization of biodiversity information in the past. And there have been some initiatives under the auspices of that alliance. For example, recent discussions on building up a global catalogue of collections, and I think it'll be good to find some space to refer to those kind of activities in the document. Also, it's important, I think, to recognize recent very exciting developments in the ability to extract data efficiently from taxonomic literature through initiatives such as the Plazi Group, Pensoft Publishers, Biodiversity Heritage Library, which is enabling very rapid extraction and accumulation of knowledge and data coming from the taxonomic world, such that newly described species can end up providing data through, for example, networks in GBIF very rapidly, and that has certainly been an important advance that I think it's important to recognize in this document. A final point I would make, and it's more maybe just not so much input into the document itself, is that in parallel to what we're doing here, I think it will be very important for us collectively to look at the next draft of the Global Biodiversity Framework, which is expected in January, because I do think in parallel with the discussions about the GTI and its future, there are important opportunities there through engagement with national focal points to ensure that taxonomy has a place in the framework itself, because at least in the zero draft, the word taxonomy is not actually mentioned once, and both in terms of the formal targets. So there is a current target 19 in the zero draft relating to biodiversity information, but also in the section relating to implementation support mechanisms. I think it'll be very important to look for opportunities there in the coming months to ensure that the kind of the work that we're discussing here gets a place in the framework itself. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, GBIF. Certainly valuable points, and I think I'm sure we can take them all up. Certainly the Biodiversity Alliance and the Global Collections Initiatives, and I believe we also have already received highly relevant written input on this opportunity which offered by digital literature, so to say, and open access publications, and making that information from literature, from taxonomic literature, more widely available. That certainly is a relevant or an important contribution. If I may, I would like also very grateful for your additional comments on the CBD process and the new and upcoming 0+1 draft of the Global Biodiversity Framework. And again, if we have, and I trust we will have, a little time at the end of the meeting, it would be good, and I would be happy to give you the floor again, or others, to collectively think about and remind ourselves about what we can and should do to really try to ensure that there will be a place for GTI in the next biodiversity agenda post 2020, in addition to producing this information package. Yeah, thank you again. So we now continue with the expert organizations, with the experts from the relevant organizations, and Mark Watson from Edinburgh. So Mark, again, now you have the floor to provide additional comments, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Is the mic working okay? Great. I'd just like to start by echoing what GBIF has said there on the really importance of the GTI to be a high-level advocacy body for taxonomy within the CBD and beyond the CBD. So getting taxonomy really embedded in there. But my main point is really to focus, excuse the pun, on the focal points. It seems to me that they're talking to some of them and seeing the lack of taxonomy reporting in the national reports is that we need to be making better use of the GTI focal points. In some countries where I work, then the GTI focal points don't get as much support from the CBD as the national focal points. They're sort of like the poorer cousin. And I think that we really should be looking at making better use of the focal points, supporting them, and encouraging them so that they feel capacitated to deliver and report on taxonomy initiatives and encourage those developments within those countries. As part of that, we should try and encourage countries which don't have nominated GTI focal points to nominate them and make sure that they're functioning and mainstreaming GTI into policy in their countries, because it is really at the grassroots where big differences are going to be made. So my point is really to get the GTI focal points fully engaged with the Secretariat and the coordination mechanism, and to empower them to do their job, sharing information. I think communication is a problem. Communicating best practice amongst the focal points, successful projects, so stimulating ideas which they can take on and use in their own countries, or maybe joining other consortia as well. So my point is to really support and encourage the focal points. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Very, very to the point and well taken, certainly from my side. If you allow me for a minute to respond directly, a little bit outside my role as chair, but also being the national German GTI focal point. I think we have in both ways seen and experienced that over the whatever last 20 or first phase of the GTI. It's an important instrument, as you rightly point out, but it's also in many countries a rather challenging responsibility due to the lack of support, due to not given priority as many other compared to many other CBD programs and agenda items. So what I guess I want to say is are two thoughts. First, please, and again, maybe collectively, we can think of concrete suggestions. I'm not sure if we can put this in the text in an easy way, but maybe in an additional form in terms of appealing to parties to strengthen, well, to nominate and strengthen their focal point, which is nothing but just repeating previous COP decisions on the GTI. But on the other hand, I think we have to honestly, so to say, pick our own noses, at least for some of us as national focal points. It's at the moment we benefit from even having a resource person at the Secretariat. And frankly, this is not guaranteed, or this is nothing we can also rely on in the future. So it's us as national GTI focal points to insist on and with our respective government that they continue to give this support and a priority, not in supporting us as national focal points, but so to say, giving us at least the leeway to reach out to the Secretariat and to help them to do better communication, to have the GTI focal point network become more active, etc. It's not something we can leave with the Secretariat and hope they will just do it. It's our common responsibility, at least among, again, it's from the appointed national focal point. So excuse me for that short intervention. Now let's continue. And I would like to call on Thomas Bosch, Director of Botanical Garden, Botanical Museum in Berlin, at the Free University. Thomas, please.
Yeah, Christoph, thank you very much. Actually, first of all, I would like to connect to something what Julianne just said, which is sort of the capacity building issues. And maybe we could even make more explicit this kind of taxonomic expert networks, which is not only plants, but that's throughout all organisms. And that's bordering or bridging national political borders. And I think this is a very important element to recognize this very explicitly for the benefit of developing and supporting scientific communities, and in particular for countries where scientific standards and communities are building up. So I think this is something very important, and there's also synergies between sort of regional assessments of diversity and what might be called global taxonomic slicing of experts. So it's basically recognizing taxonomic expert networks and respective mechanisms of collaboration, which take also resources. So I think that's important, that it's not something that can be just done after 5 by the respective scientists, and it's important that institutions have the backup, that support on this is really relevant. A small second point, but this is more very general, the question of what the concept taxonomic impediment is. And I think it's, of course, we think about the products, which are databases, successful national biodiversity information systems, taxonomic keys and floras, etc. So there is a lack, and this is an impediment, that's for sure, but in various different levels on the planet. But on the other hand, again, I think it's very important to think about the core role of the scientific community, so human capacities. And if we read through the document also, there is a little bit the question, so it's the egg and hen question. So what comes first, the technology or the science? And I think it's very important that also, with the sake of, in German we say Kooperation auf Augenhöhe, so to match on equal height, collaboration between people in countries throughout the world, that there is the scientific capacity and understanding and consciousness about theory and methods really developing, and not just a technology offered and access to technology which, may be used as a user but is not really understood. And I think in order to achieve a really fair international global participation, it's important that everybody can really participate in developing theories and contributing to designing these approaches and workflows.
Thank you, Thomas. Yes, very good point. And of course, going a little bit beyond taxonomy or collaboration in taxonomy and taxonomic research, but definitely highly relevant and also, in my view, quite appropriate to address an important point, how to improve also sustainable capacity building for the GTI in the future. So thanks for that. The next 2 more organizations on the list, and next is CTAF, the Consortium of European Taxonomic Facilities. So Michelle Price, again, Michelle, please.
Thank you very much, Christoph. Yeah, as with Tim and other presenters, I gave a little overview of CTAF yesterday and the main things that we've done in a sense for achieving or working towards the goals. So one of the few things that we really want to highlight is that we can bring up the joint GBIF and CTAF document that we produced in 2018 with a list of actions, and I think Tim and I can discuss how we can integrate these.
Excuse me, Michelle. Excuse me, Michelle. Again, on my side, the audio is not so good. So if you could try to get a little closer to your microphone or speak a little slower, we have time. Go ahead.
Okay, it's not so tight. Is this better now? A bit better. Not better at all. Okay, well, I'll go very slowly. Sorry, so CTAF had an intervention yesterday and we went over the main sort of highlights of what CTAF's been doing. GBIF and CTAF made a joint document in 2018 where action points were outlined, and I think we need to have a look at integrating those back into the current process. So from CTAF, I think we really want to highlight taxonomy as a fundamental and fast evolving scientific discipline. I think it's very important to stress that we are really strongly rooted in science here. And I totally agree with Tim that we also need to ensure that taxonomy features in any documents about biodiversity. It's absolutely essential that taxonomy is integrated into the biodiversity framework document. So what we really think is very exciting and fundamental to supporting future activities is really the data connectedness that we're seeing currently. Being able to connect names to specimens and names to taxonomic works, and taxonomic works to gene sequences is really, really very, very important. And this was highlighted in several of these presentations. So the XMLization of documents and the instant availability of taxonomic data is very important. And this is something that's also happening in the workflow online. So we really also fully support coordinated taxonomy training programs, and especially now with a move towards virtual or integrated, so virtual and field-based taxonomy training programs. This is going to be very, very important in the future, as we need people, people to be trained and people also to be able to go out into the field and understand and interpret what they see around them. We think also that we need to perhaps identify bottom-up needs and requirements. So what do people actually want from what we're actually doing? And this is a kind of a fundamental thing that needs to be addressed, especially as technologies are evolving. And then I think we need to prioritize the taxonomy nomenclature and the biological understanding of critically important taxonomy guilds in the context of our changing world. And we need to be reactive also and integrate what we do into challenges under the new Anthropocene period that we live in. So I think we have a lot to contribute positively in this way. I'm sorry if you couldn't hear me very well. I will actually submit these comments also on behalf of CTAF so that they can be integrated in the document. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Christoph. I hand back to you.
Thank you, Michelle, and yeah, please, we look forward to have your well-thought comments in writing and to help to improve the relevant parts of the text. So additional, or last but in no way least on my list, is the International Barcode of Life Consortium. Originally this was Paul Lebert, but he will be, or Donald Hoburn has agreed to step in kindly, so the floor is yours, Donald.
Thank you very much indeed, Christoph. And I'd just like to make a few comments, particularly in support of most of the things that have already been said. I'd like to go back to the comments from Tim Hirsch on the Alliance for Biodiversity Knowledge as a framework and an attempt to change the culture of how we all work together to manage the information we need in order to understand biodiversity, both for taxonomy, for ecology, for conservation, for sustainable use. And as Tim has outlined, one of the activities that has come out of that has been a focus on the improved linkages between natural history collections, cataloging those collections, and then expanding the data that are available to researchers from collections. And I would strongly advocate that this remains a foundational need for the GTI and for taxonomy globally. More generally, I do think that the growing move in many parts of the world, I recognize that this is not everywhere, but in many parts of the world towards fair and open data is an opportunity for us to help one another a lot more by sharing information in ways that can meet the needs of all communities and all stakeholders, from policymakers through researchers down to local communities. But in order for us to be able to do this, we do need to be thinking of the place of taxonomy and of the GTI in a broader set of collaborations. And I think that really means we need to be seeking, and I would say that the document needs to highlight the need for us to seek synergies at all levels between taxonomy as an expert science, the tools and technical innovations that are increasingly helping us to interact with the natural world in new ways, the data infrastructures that exist, such as GBIF, the Barcode of Life, Biodiversity Heritage Library, World Flora Online, all of these need to be part of a solution, which really means we need to be working closely with taxonomists as the expert knowledge that we can support, but also that can help to help the infrastructures, the data that we hold, to be as good as possible. And finally, as has been repeated by so many, we need all of this to be underpinned with a strategy for capacity and technical development internationally and throughout all regions, because this is going to be the foundation for the taxonomic expertise of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. Excellent. I hope we have recorded this in full, and if not, or in any case, please do provide the text in writing. That will definitely improve the attractiveness of the document. This now concludes my list, but we had a number of delegates who could, for technical reasons, not forward their comments, at least by speaking. So could I ask the Secretariat, have we meanwhile received any text by email or other means that could be read? Seems not to be the case.
Not arrived yet.
Okay, then I would propose, also looking at the watch, that we now take our break for asking the Secretariat 15 minutes. Yes.
Can I? There's just one participant with a hand up. Do we have a moment to answer the question?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry.
So we have
manage that. I don't.
Josephina, if you're there, I'm going to unmute your microphone.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I am Josefina Anfedake from the European Commission, and I have been newly appointed to GTI, and I'm sorry for not having had the time to contribute with a presentation, but I certainly we will contribute to the current document, and I would like to highlight, if I have 1 or 2 minutes, a few of the initiatives that we are preparing. As you may know, in Europe, this has been a year of change because not only because of the pandemics, but because of the launch of the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, and also because we are preparing the next research and innovation program, Horizon Europe. So we have been furiously co-creating with a number of stakeholders, and with, and for the first time, very closely, both the Directorate General for Environment and the research. So these both areas that are actually crucial for taxonomy is crucial for both, and we want to reassure you that taxonomy is cited 15 times in our 400 pages document on the research, the research program, what we call Cluster 6, which includes agriculture, food, and environment. But I wanted to highlight a few actions that I will send you very shortly for the document, and they are very, I believe they are very much in line with which other speakers have highlighted. So we are preparing preparatory action for an EU pollinator monitoring scheme, so that involves taxonomic training of professionals and also citizen scientists, because we believe that both threads need to be together. We are also, and this is a small study, but I believe it's going to be very, very useful. We're going to establish with IUCN the European Red List of taxonomists. So it's an assessment of the taxonomic expertise in Europe, the first time we do that, and the IUCN have been very, very kind of adapting their methodology to see where is this protected species of taxonomies, what are the regional areas, regional inside Europe that need to be covered, which taxa are in need of more taxonomic expertise, and this is the first time we do that, and we hope it's going to help us with the future capacity building exercises. I encourage this to be done in other regions, but we are still launching. I hope in future I will give you the results. And as a capacity building, we want to start a €5 million program on building taxonomic research capacity near biodiversity hotspots and for protected areas by networking natural history museums and other taxonomic facilities. For the time being, this is just a coordination and support action, but it's the first pilot. We will see how it is going. So where expert taxonomy trainers do a network of followers that can be in situ in the natural parks or protected areas, and they can have also some money also to build the capacity if needed, even wet labs if necessary. Well, I will give you more details by writing. And to help establishing national reference collections, at least for pollinators in all European countries. So bees, butterflies, moths, and hoverfly specimens in collaboration with research projects. That is for capacity building, but we also fund scientific and technological cooperation, and yes, genomics are the latest addition to fantastic technologies. We want to support the European participation in global biodiversity genomics endeavors, and not only barcoding, also full genome. So we want to fund, if possible, a big project, 20 million euro of both communities, barcoding and whole genomic sequencers, to be the European node, not to create a new thing, but to really contribute to evolve and to the tree of life. And if not possible, then two individual projects, one the barcoders with their mitochondria and PCRs, and the other ones with the whole genomes. But if possible, we would like to overcome this fragmentation, because anyway the machines are similar and the technologies are similar. I don't know if that will be possible. And we want also to support new data, the development of new data and technologies for the inventory, for fast identification and monitoring of endangered species and other species groups, including, because pollinators is our pet policy group, but not exclusively, pollinators, integrated taxonomy to inventory bees, butterflies, moths, and hoverflies, but also other threatened species groups. So these two areas, capacity building and scientific and technical cooperation, are covered by our programs. But the most important thing, last but not least, is that for the first time, we are going to put together these two worlds, the research communities in all the European member states, so at national level, with the environmental and monitoring, biodiversity monitoring communities, so also the ministries of environment, in the new European Partnership for Biodiversity. And this is supported by the EU, but only at a third of the effort. So 2/3 will be supported by the member states themselves, and they are now writing the strategic research agenda, and we are co-creating it with them. We will make sure that taxonomy is, I'm sure it is already there, but that it will have flagships and the necessary capacity building and frameworks to try to coordinate this and to overcome this fragmentation. Thank you very much. I will try to do it very, very shortly for the document.
Thank you very much, Josefina. Thanks, European Commission. This is really certainly very exciting news and announcements, certainly for Horizon Europe and, as you said, the new partnership on biodiversity. If you allow me just to direct points to respond. First, if and in addition to all the ambitious new opportunities you mentioned, there would be further ones to reach out to build capacity beyond Europe, that would certainly be most welcome by many of our partners. And second, on the European Red List, if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking at my European GTI, National Focal Point colleagues, or maybe some of their predecessors in the back of my maybe too old memory, when we had should I say, a little more active GTI, National Focal Point Network in Europe. I certainly remember some long time ago a workshop in film where we did that or tried to do that some maybe 15 years ago, which may be an interesting point for comparison. And you can go back to me or your ICN colleagues. I should be able to find the needle in the sediment haystack to get back some of this old data. But again, thank you very much, not only for being with us, but for these really important and exciting news. And of course, we do look forward to have the details in writing. So, Secretariat, again, please help me if there are any additional interventions or contributions. In my panel, I don't see any at the moment.
No, there's nothing so far.
Okay, thank you. Then again, my suggestion would be we break for 15 minutes now. Is that, or should we do close to 20 minutes and say we'll continue at the hour? That's 4 o'clock Central European time and
10 a.m. in Eastern time.
Yeah, thank you. So we will continue in 18 minutes to be exact. Thanks and have a good break. Are we ready to go again, Katie, Junko?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much, and welcome back, everybody, to the third and final day of the GTI Forum. We are still with the responses and comments from delegates on the Tour de Table, officially agenda item 5. Meanwhile, we have received, I understand, some additional statements via email. So on my side, I have one intervention, but maybe I would first like to check with the Secretariat if any of the regional representatives who had technical issues have submitted some statement or intervention. Katie, Junko, do you have any comment received yet? Not
no. Yet. And Chinese delegate Haining is online now. Whether he wishes to speak through the GoToWebinar or he wants to send something in writing, so then the Secretariat can read on behalf of Haining.
Yeah, if you hear us, Haining, and are ready to take the floor, I'm certainly willing to give you the microphone.
I don't believe he has a microphone right now.
Yeah, it seems the same challenge as before. Okay, then let me take up the comment I received via email from Dr. Scott Miller. He is the chief scientist at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. And if I remember correctly, Scott is also the GTI focal point for the United States. And Scott has also problems or had problems connecting. And he, via email, briefly states, I agree with the discussion that strengthening connections to the literature, including the Biodiversity Heritage Library, is vital. I am also concerned that for the GTI to work and for taxonomy and systematics in general to work, there needs to be reasonable access to and exchange of biological data and materials. I understand the issues of ownership and ABS and all the sensitivities, but wild species, whether native or invasive, do not recognize international borders. And taxonomy is therefore a fundamentally international activity. In this light, I think it would be useful for the GTI to promote Article 8 of Nagoya, which was intended to address this issue. I'm only aware of a few countries that are addressing Article 8 in their national implementations of Nagoya. Thanks, Scott. So thank you to Scott Miller for this intervention, and sorry for the problems to get a connection with our meeting. So again, before we conclude this item on the oral interventions. Final check. Secretariat, Katie
Yes.
Junko, is there?
Hugo is back.
Ah, okay. So thanks, and I'm now happy to give the floor to Hugo de Boers from University of Oslo, Norway, the Natural History Museum. We had your presentation, but now you have the floor for any comments on the document. Hugo, please.
Well, I don't hope this is an anti-climax, but we will consult the document with our stakeholders in the Norwegian Environment Agency and provide feedback to it in writing.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I trust you have noticed the, so to say, slightly extended timeline, and
yes,
we look forward to receive your comments.
That is highly appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. So final call, Secretariat, do we have any other participant either ready to speak or who has submitted something we can read out, at least as far I can see on my side? Not yet.
We just had an email from Diana. Okay, I can read it now if that's all right.
Sure, please go ahead.
Okay, so Diana's thanking us for the opportunity and the floor yesterday. Due to the short time, I made a very quick overview of some of the programs on which we have been working on Econobio, along with the academia and other government sectors in the country. However, we do not have other projects and programs going on, such as MEXBAL, a thematic network on barcoding. Sorry, we do have other networks. As a network, it has been interrupted because of lack of funds. However, individually, several research continues to generate information and publishing into the BOLD system. Other ongoing programs are focused on documenting and mobilizing information on biological interactions, mainly on pollinators. There is a national strategy on pollinators with partners from government, academia, and private sector that jointly will make an assessment of the problem of their conservation in their country. The first issue is to get a revised and annotated list of the pollinator species. We are going through several processes of political and administrative changes, so funds have been reducing, and therefore some programs have been interrupted. We plan to continue them as far as possible. And with regards to the document, she will send her comments in writing according to the deadline. And that's it. So thank you, Diana, for sending those along. And I'm sorry to hear about your microphone issues. We apologize for that too.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. And also thanks to Diana, thanks to Conabio for their contribution and their comments. As said, we look forward to receive the full details in written. So if we don't have any other intervention or comment outstanding, I would like to conclude the tour de table just again with the repeat and appeal to you all with the newly obviously extended deadline. Please use this opportunity and help us to make this information package document really attractive and concise and also inclusive. So again, if you have at least some good examples for which we suggest you use the Annex 2 or at least some of the tables there, please do submit that to the Secretariat by 14th December, the latest, as well as any other comments you may have to the document. That was an interesting acoustic experience. I don't have any explanation for that on my side, sorry. That seems to be gone.
Crystal from the Secretariat, I would like to know whether the forum as a whole accept that new time frame whether any further extension of deadline, that will be physically very difficult. Therefore,
yeah,
so
thank you,
it
Junko. It
was
was my
concluded.
understanding that we reached this agreement before we started the Tour de Table. Indeed, I can confirm that participants to the forum have accepted that revised timeline, and at least some participants expressed their gratitude to you to be so flexible. And
thank
yeah.
you very much for the clarity. Yes, and I appreciate everyone's cooperation. That spirit is well appreciated.
Yeah, thanks very much. So this then concludes the Tour de Table, and with regard to our formal agenda item 5, we would now turn to essentially already to other matters. Help have a GTA mandate included in the post-2020 agenda. I would be happy for us to spend some little time, we don't have much time left before we have to conclude, for any suggestions or any ideas you may have how to further support that. Again, I would certainly we would be open, and since this is an open forum, we can also do things a little bit outside the usual, or at least discuss things a little bit outside the strict official protocol, if I may say so. I believe Tim Hirsch-GBIF is asking for the floor. I think, Tim, you can unmute your microphone yourself.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a suggestion along those lines. I think a possibility of what we could do beyond the technical document itself, and probably alongside it in terms of the timetable, is to consider drafting a short, concise statement that could be agreed by all of the nominated representatives to the forum. That would be a concise appeal statement on behalf of those taking part in the GTI forum on the importance of including taxonomy and capacity building for it in the context of the GTI within the framework. And timing obviously is challenging because, as you said, the next, or what will officially be the first draft of the framework, if we're expecting that to be in January, we can only work on what we've seen in the zero draft. But I think we would probably be able collectively to make a statement of that kind, which doesn't refer specifically to the existing draft, but simply could be a general short consensus about the vital role of taxonomy to be included within the framework, and it could perhaps be not more than one page setting out the main arguments and principles. And I mean, that's something that I would certainly be happy with colleagues to perhaps try to get a first draft that we could circulate along the same time frame, so with the first ideas that could be submitted by the 14th of December, so that when it comes to agreeing the rest of the document, the fuller document in January, there could also be a short, concise statement that might be effective, at least as a, if you like, a lobbying document that could run alongside the other discussions in the coming months once the first draft is or the next draft is published, and before the meetings later in the year. So I guess that would be my suggestion and proposal, to have a short, concise statement from the GTI forum participants, agreed by us all, to run alongside the more detailed technical document that the Secretariat will help to put together with our input.
Thank you very much, Tim. Thanks, GBIF. very interesting, and also thanks for the offer to draft that. I'm certainly more than open to take that up. I understand that that is not only a possibility, but maybe really a valuable addition. It's again nothing which has a very necessarily a strong mandate, but at least we have through such an open call, as I understand, or a statement from the participants of the forum, a possibility to have a common voice, which again, or a statement via a common voice. Can I ask if there are any immediate responses or reactions to this proposal? I understand it would be just a short, fairly generic statement, so to say, appealing to parties and relevant organizations to consider to include capacity building measures for and with the GTI to be included in the global biodiversity framework. And as I understand, at least this is, so to say, would be an open call if any member of the, or any participant of the forum would have problems or would see some hesitation to, so to say, sign on. We could even manage to do that separately from the document. Can the Secretariat help me? Do we have any requests for the floor, any comments, feedbacks? Too many boxes I have to look at. There's
positive feedback for Tim's proposal to write a concise statement. So in the question box, we've seen from participants that they strongly approve of it. And also on behalf of Michelle, she has also offered to help prepare the draft.
Yeah, thank you. That thanks to Michelle, this is CTAF offering assistance to draft such a statement. Let me just see. Still have seems problems to get the question box in shape. File has an input. Yeah, so specifically, let me ask the selected regional representatives, since it would be especially also on their, or hopefully with their support. Are there any comments or
Christoph, there are a few in the question
Can
box.
you please help me?
Yeah.
I still have problems this question box to see it broadly. To me, it only.
Yes.
Katie or Junko, could you please call on the?
Yes. So far, nobody. Okay, this is from Donna Agosti. So far, nobody mentions IPBES. This seems to be the logic point where activities of the GTI must end up, must inform the monitoring and assessment. I believe she is trying to express that GTI, whatever the outcome of this forum or the future activities need to be informed into IPBES process under the monitoring and assessment, I believe.
Yeah, thank you, Junko. I think this is a comment not to this proposal, but rather to the previous, or a contribution to the round table discussion, and we should definitely consider that. What I just noticed, there was a notice, but again, I'm sorry, I have problems seeing who started this note, that this should or could be extended to all participants, so to say, signing on or supporting that statement, also self-registered participants. And from my side, I would see no objection to that, unless, or that's more a question to the Secretariat, whether that's technically feasible, so to say. At least you should have all the names and contacts at your hands of, that's talking now about the self-registered participants.
To share the intermediate documents through
No,
the...
this was on the
The final
suggestion.
one.
No, not the document, the statement that was proposed by GBIF, by Tim Hirsch, the brief open statement from the participants of the forum to the CBD parties, etc. And if that statement would not only include the officially invited registered or regional representatives, but also the self-registered participants. This is what I understand from the question box. And at least from my side, I think I would be very open to make that happen. But the question is, I don't know if we have and can get back to all the self-registered participants in a reasonable way to have their...
Yes, logistically it is possible. We do kept all registered participants' email, and as soon as that draft becomes ready to circulate, the short statement wouldn't take too long days to receive the feedback from all. And let's agree that silence meaning green light, and go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Can you help me again? Are there any further suggestions or questions on this proposal? So we would be more than happy to take you up, GBIF, with support of CTAF and any other volunteers, to draft such a short generic statement from the forum, from all participants, or on behalf of all participants of the forum, in support of essentially a renewed GTI.
There are additional supporting messages. This sounds like a very positive proposal from Tim. I request to include me in the preparation of the draft, if possible, regards. Okay, in addition to CTAF, we got an offer of a drafting team. Aija Ahmed Qureshi, thank you, from India, Kashmir, India. Costa Rica is certainly in agreement with Tim Hirsch proposal. Please send emails for all speakers. Dan Johnson, Costa Rica will certainly comment on Hirsch, Tim's draft, I believe.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't see any further. Again, I have that, but need to scroll through these. I think we also missing a few other comments on the document, but since this item essentially is closed, we have to take them up in writing. Yeah, so just to conclude, and as I can see, there seems to be overwhelming support for your suggestion, Tim. So if I may take you up on your kind offer to, so to say, draft or provide a short draft with those other colleagues who volunteered, and so to say, provide that to the Secretariat then for circulation. And as suggested, the way forward would be that it should include individual participants by name, including those self-registered, and the Secretariat will help you or help us to make sure that people have to, or individuals, so to say, have to, well, at least not object to have their name on that statement. And my question to the Secretariat is, I don't know about, and this, well, this shouldn't lead us directly to the reporting issue or the next item, but perhaps already the question, is it possible, or what's your timeline to produce the Secretariat report from our meeting, from the forum? Is the timeline? Do you have an earlier timeline to finalize the so to say internal or the Secretariat report before the now extended timeline, meaning what is it, 24th of January? Can you say that ad hoc,
If I may,
yeah, sure.
yes. My understanding now is that the CBD technical series containing the short statement agreed by all participants. No.
Well, my understanding, sorry,
expect,
was the statement separate from a document. We may, so to say, include it, but it's something new on the table. And my understanding was it's not yet, unless we or you all agree, it's not yet to be fully formally included in the document. It's a separate, edition statement.
Okay. So
wider circulation.
So the Annex 1 to be amended by submissions and then approval by the core group, designated experts and the regional representative will go to the process of publishing technical series. And as an information document, what the Secretariat can do is put a cover note, note by Executive Secretary, indicating the process of this forum, and this is the outcome, and therefore the participants, I should refer to those approved regional representatives and designated expert organizations submit, prepared in collaboration with the Secretariat into the form of technical series, and Executive Secretary share that information as an information for SBI 3 as submitted, something like that. That will be considered as a report of this open-ended forum. So the process was open-ended, and participants list will be attached. All participants list will be attached, and approval of the final contents will be approved by the currently sitting so-called panel, regional representatives plus designated expert organizations.
Thank you, Junko.
Clear now? Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. Yes, I understand from that for your report, you have also the deadline now as of whatever, 21st of January. It's not that you need to provide an earlier report before that date. Is that correct? You don't know. Well, okay. Don't be too pointed. Could I just get back to GBIF and maybe other colleagues? Did I understand you correctly? Or of course we can try to include it in the technical series document, but my own understanding, at least ad hoc, would be that we have that separate, just also for practical purposes in terms of this can be handed and circulated. If it's embedded in the whatever 50-page or whatever it ends up to be technical series document, it might quotes get not read so easily. But I'm in your hands. Tim, GBIF, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the way I would see it, I think, is that we would probably see just two distinct outcomes of the meeting. One would be the full technical report, and the other would be the concise statement. And so they could both be reported as agreed outputs of the meeting. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. As indicated, it was also my initial understanding, and as I can see, also preferred, at least for practical purposes, so people can take up the statement without having to carry immediately the whole report with it. for whatever circulation and purposes they want to. Are there any other comments or contributions on that proposal? So let me ask you, can we agree on that proposal that we will, as a second output from the forum, jointly produce this short and hopefully appealing statement for a new mandate for GTI capacity building under the Global Biodiversity Framework, without being specific in any way how and where to put this in the document, since we don't know the document yet, but it would be just generic. And in that generic form, I think it should certainly be acceptable to anybody. I don't see any objection, and for the practical purposes, if I could call on the drafting group, GBIF, CTAF, others, to please come up as soon as possible with the first version, ideally, if you can, also by whatever 14th of December, so we can, so to say, jointly then providing or compiling a first draft of the technical series document, also have that short statement. Thank you again, and this is really really good proposal. I'm certainly welcome for that initiative. Okay, then if that's agreed, thank you very much. In terms of the agenda, and we have a little less than half an hour of the time left, I would like to turn officially now to item 7, other matters. I'm, as usual, this is the opportunity for any of the participants to raise any other issues they see as relevant or suitable to the GTI forum, which we may have missed or not discussed. This is really challenging technology. Secretariat, again, can you help me? There's a question box. I still have problems. No, this is the last intervention was also on that.
One person
proposal
from India.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for the initiative. Hopefully, once the GTI is inviting proposal, we may get permissions from the Indian government and hoping to collaborate. Regards, but the person who wrote has already left.
Mm-hmm.
That is all I can see on the screen.
Yeah, that's also my latest intervention. Okay, thank you very much. If there are no other issues that you would like to have addressed, that leaves me then.
Prior to the closure of the meeting, I would like to
not
express...
yet to the closure of the meeting. Sorry, Secretariat.
Okay.
We still have, and that's actually going back to you, agenda item 8, which we in essence already discussed in terms of the process of producing the report and the finalization of the document. But still, I would like to give you the opportunity, since this is in your hands, if there are any other information or
well, there is no other information, and so stay in touch. And if you through your network to find whether the GTI National Focal Point, who hasn't received the emails and the notification from the Secretariat, Secretariat is really having difficulty to chase the contact coordinates of the designated the Global National Focal Point. So that would be very helpful. And if parties wishes to appoint a new GTI National Focal Point, or in the previous time there was no GTI National Focal Point, you can refer to the previous COP decision, and parties are invited to submit a point, GTI national focal point, and inform with the official letter to the executive secretary of the CBD. Please convey this message. I'm really, dependent on your hands, because it's been difficult to be honest. Right. And other thing, I would like to repeat, the deadline of submission is the 14th of December. And later part, the compilation, well, Secretariat will do our possible best, and any technical misunderstanding if we make at the Secretariat, we will be in your hand to make it as correct as possible. I'm asking the core members, selected and approved by Substa Bureau to review and advise us to finalize it. So that would be by January 15th.
Yeah, thank you, Junko. Could I ask Katie, could you put up the overhead again with the timeline, just because people may not have had enough time to take note, and some people joined later, or if you could do that, that certainly would be helpful. Thank you. That's great. So this was the earlier agreed revised timeline. As the Secretariat has just said, please submit your written additions, comments to the draft information document by the 14th of December at latest. Please, just to repeat, don't use or avoid to using track changes in the document, but rather provide or text separately with a clearer reference or indication which paragraphs, which chapters you want to see your addition included. And also, please, everybody, provide some input into what's currently annexed to these predefined tables, again by 14th of December. Katie, excuse me,
Katie, you're hiding the part of the screen.
The important part of the screen is gone. Thank you very much. So again, the so to say real hard deadline to have a final version, but that again will be mainly on the drafting the Secretariat and some editors and drafted authors will be 15th of January. You would then, and this is the official regional representatives and invited participants to have essentially 1 week to look at the final version. And well, I understood, depending on feasibility, we would seek your approval by email, or unless people object, it would be taken as approved by the 22nd of January. But I don't think that was planned. If there is the opportunity of the Secretariat has the possibility to have us get together, just invited for another short meeting, we could. I'm certainly would be available, but I think that would be difficult to arrange now on short-term notice. So my understanding is we have to do this with this extended email, just by this extended deadline, excuse me, just by email. And then the approved version would see some final formal editing by Secretariat editors, typesetters, etc. Until the end of January. And could I ask, I don't know, I lack experience, Junko, but what's the effective production time in terms of, can you already give us an indication if we meet this timeline and the really final typeset version is submitted to the whatever relevant, so to say, printer's office in the old days, I don't know what you call it now, by 31st of January, by what date approximately one could expect to have the product in hand? 2 weeks, or I don't know how much time do they take? Do you have an indication of that? I mean, just informally I would be. You're muted, as it seems.
Apologize. Typesetting, doesn't take too long, and the problem is rather existing within the bureaucracy in UN system. So to be safe, I would say 1 month of period, and yeah, in between 2 weeks and 1 month. Yeah, but this is just an estimation, to be honest.
No,
yes.
Understood. Was just.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, thank you very much. So again, this is the way forward now. It brings at least my chairing part almost to the end. I'm certainly want to before we close the meeting already thank all of you and look forward to the additional valuable contributions in writing, and I'm really excited that we can make that happen together, hopefully with the expected outcome that there will be a strong or strengthened GTI in the future. This will be important for the CBD and many other forms of international collaboration certainly on our side. Okay, we would now turn to the formal closure of the meeting, and I would like to give the floor to the Secretariat again. Junko, again, you seem to be muted.
Yes, it took me a little while to unmute my microphone, sorry. Well, I just wanted to say, I am very pleased for the very active participation and everybody who made a presentation that was really captured the up-to-date taxonomic capacity development and potential technical and scientific cooperation and technology transfer. That was filled with rich information. I truly appreciate for each one of you who made a presentation in a very short notice, and everybody participated from the outside of regional, representations. That was really the power that this Global Taxonomy Initiative community is still up and running. And I wish that the bright future will be coming soon. And I really appreciate, Christoph has been long-standing friend of everybody, I believe, and he did a great job once again in this community. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson, for this. So I would like to hand this over back to the chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Junko, and certainly thank you also for the flowers. But I think they really have to go to you and Katie and all the colleagues behind the scenes. There are quite a few, I believe, I know. It's always very tough on the Secretariat. I think we have all, actually witnessed some of the challenges having these truly international global meetings under the current circumstances, and with a still advancing technology. From my side, again, many thanks to all of you for the very hard and good work under more than challenging circumstances, not so much for the technicalities, but certainly for the overall constraints you and we operate under in the pandemic, and especially with, so to say, an interim budget and all the other things that or constraints that the Secretariat is currently working under. Yeah, so thanks to you, and of course also from my side, one more final and really out of my heart thanks to all your good motivation, high passion, and valuable contribution for the GTI and for taxonomy. I was really impressed by the many inputs, especially the last 2 days.